Of champagne are entered as having been consumed?
Yes, sir, 8 bottles and a pint.
Why is it that at a bachelor's establishment the servants invariably drink the champagne? I ask merely for information.
I contribute it to the superior quality of the wine, sir, and often do that in married households the champagne is hardly the first-rate brand.
Good heavens, is marriage so demoralizing as that?
I believe it is a very pleasant state, sir. Of course, I've had very little experience of it myself up to the present. I've only been married once, and that was in consequence of misunderstanding. Myself a young person.
I don't know that I'm much interested in your family life, Liz.
No, sir. It isn't a very interesting subject, but I hardly think of it myself.
Very natural, I'm sure. That will do, lady. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Lane's views on marriage seem somewhat lax, really. If the lower orders don't see it as a good example, what on earth is the use of them? They seem as a class to have absolutely no sense of moral responsibility.
Mr. Ernest Worthing.
My dear Ernest, how are you? What brings you off to town?
Pleasure. What else should bring one anywhere? Eating as usual, I see, Algie.
I believe it is customary in good society to take some slight refreshment at 5 o'clock. Where have you been since last Thursday?
In the country.
What on earth do you do there?
When one is in town, one amuses oneself. When one is in the country, one amuses other people. It's excessively boring.
And to what end will you amuse?
Oh, neighbours.
Got nice neighbours in your part of Shropshire.
Perfectly horrid. Never speak to one of them.
How immensely you must amuse them. By the way, Shropshire is your county, is it not?
Shropshire? Oh yes, of course, hello. Why all these cups? Why cucumber sandwiches? Why such reckless extravagance and one so young? Who is coming to tea?
Oh, merely Aunt Augusta and Gwendolyn.
How perfectly delightful.
Yes, that is all very well, but I'm afraid Aunt Augusta won't quite approve of your being here.
May I ask why?
My dear fellow, the way you flirt with Gwendolyn is perfectly disgraceful. It is almost as bad as the way Gwendolyn flirts with you.
I want to be engaged to Gwendolyn. I've come up to town expressly to propose to her.
I thought you would come up for pleasure. I call that business.
How utterly unromantic you are!
I really don't see anything romantic in proposing. It is very romantic to be in love, but there is nothing romantic about a definite proposal. Why, one may be accepted. One usually is, I believe, and then all the excitement is over. The very essence of romance is uncertainty. If ever I get married, I shall certainly try to forget the fact.
I have no doubt about that, dear Algie. The divorce court was especially invented for people whose memories are so curiously constituted.
Oh, there is no speculating on that subject. Divorces are made in heaven. Please don't touch the cucumber sandwiches. They are ordered especially for Aunt Augusta.
You've been eating them all the time.
That is quite a different matter. She is my aunt. Have some bread and butter. Bread and butter is for Gwendolyn. Gwendolyn is devoted to bread and butter.
Very good bread and butter it is, too.
Well, my dear fellow, you need not eat it as if you were going to eat it all. You behave as if you were married to her already. You are not married to her already, and I don't think you ever will be.
Why on earth do you say that?
In the first place, girls never marry the men they flirt with. Girls don't think it right.
That is nonsense.
It isn't. It is a great truth that accounts for the extraordinary number of bachelors that one sees all over the place. In the second place, I don't give my consent.
Your consent?
My dear fellow, Gwendolyn is my first cousin, and before I allow you to marry her, you will have to clear a couple questions.
Cecily? What on earth do you mean, Algie, by Cecily? I don't know anyone but...
Bring me that cigarette case Mr. Worthing left in the smoking room the last time he dined here.
Yes, sir.
Do you mean to say you've had my cigarette case all this time? I wish to goodness you'd let me know. I've been writing frantic letters to Scotland Yard about it, very nearly offering a large reward.
Oh, I wish you would offer one. I happen to be more than usually hard up.
There is no good offering a large reward now that the thing is found.
Well, I think that is rather mean of you, Ernest, I must say. However, it makes no matter. And now that I look at the inscription inside, I find that the thing isn't yours after all.
Of course it is mine. You've seen me with it 100 times, and you've no right whatsoever to read what's written on the inside. It's a very ungentlemanly thing to read a private cigarette case.
Oh, it is absurd to have a hard and fast rule about what one should read and what one shouldn't read. More than half of modern culture depends on what one shouldn't read.
I'm quite well aware of the fact, and I don't propose to discuss modern culture. I simply want my cigarette case
Yes,
back.
but this isn't your cigarette case. This cigarette case is a present from someone of the name of Cecily, and you said you didn't know anyone of that name.
Well, if you must know, Cecily happens to be my aunt.
Your aunt.
Yes, charming old lady she is too. Lives at Tunbridge Wells. Just give it back to me, Algy.
But why does she call herself Little Cecily if she is your aunt and lives at Tunbridge Wells? From Little Cecily with her fondest love.
My dear fellow, what on earth is there in that? Some ants are tall, some ants are not tall. That doesn't mean that surely an aunt may be able to decide for herself. You seem to think that every aunt in the world should be like your aunt. Well, that is absurd. For heaven's sake, give me my cigarette case back.
Yes, but why does your aunt call you her uncle? From Little Cecily with her fondest love to her dear Uncle Jack. There is no objection, I admit, in an aunt being a small aunt. But why an aunt, no matter what her size may be, should call her own nephew her uncle, I can't quite make out. Besides, your name isn't Jack at all, it is Ernest.
It isn't Ernest. It's Jack.
You have always told me it was Ernest. I have introduced you to everyone as Ernest. You answer to the name of Ernest. You look as if your name was Ernest. You are the most Ernest-looking person I ever saw in my life. It is perfectly absurd you're saying your name isn't Ernest. It's on your cards. Here's one of them. Mr. Ernest Worthing for the Albany. Well, keep this as a proof. Your name is Ernest if ever you attempt to deny it to me or to Wenzel or to anyone else.
Well, my name is Ernest in town, and Jack in the country, and the cigarette case was given to me in the country.
Yes, but that does not account for the fact that your small aunt Cecily, who lives at Tunbridge Wells, calls you her dear uncle. Come, old boy, you'd much better have the thing out at once.
My dear Algy, you talk exactly as if you were a dentist. It's very vulgar to talk as if one is a dentist when one isn't a dentist. It produces a false impression.
Well, that is exactly what dentists always do. Now go on, tell me the whole thing. I may mention that I have always suspected you of being a confirmed and secret Bunburyist, and I'm quite sure of it now.
Bunburyist? What on earth do you mean, Bunburyist?
I'll reveal to you the meaning of that incomparable expression as soon as you are kind enough to tell me why you are Ernest in town and Jack in the country.
Well, produce my cigarette case first.
Here it is. Now produce your explanation and pray make it improbable.
My dear Algy, there is nothing improbable about my explanation at all. In fact, it's perfectly ordinary. Old Mr. Thomas Cardew, who adopted me when I was a little boy, made me in his will guardian to his granddaughter, Miss Cecily Cardew. Cecily, who addresses me as her uncle from motives of respect that you could not possibly appreciate, lives at my place in the country under the charge of her admirable governess, Miss Prism.
Where is that place in the country, by the way?
That is nothing to you, dear boy. You are not going to be invited. I may tell you candidly, the place is not in Shropshire.
Oh, I suspected that, my dear fellow. I have Bunburyed all over Shropshire on 2 separate occasions. Now go on, tell me why you are Ernest in town and Jack in the country.
My dear Algy, I don't know whether you will be able to understand my real motives. You are hardly serious enough. When one is placed in the position of guardian, one has to adopt a very high moral tone on all subjects. It's one's duty to do so, and as a high moral tone can hardly be said to conduce very much to one's health or one's happiness. In order to get to town, I have always pretended to have a brother of the name of Earnest, who lives in the Albany and gets in the most dreadful scrapes. That, my dear Algy, is the whole truth, pure and simple.
The truth is rarely pure and never simple. Modern life would be very tedious if it were either in modern literature a complete impossibility.
No, that wouldn't at all be a bad thing.
Literary criticism is criticism. Not your forte, my dear fellow. Don't try it. You should leave that to people who haven't been at a university. They do it so well in the daily papers. What you really are is a Bunburyist. I was quite right in saying you were a Bunburyist. You are one of the most advanced Bunburyists I know.
What on earth do you mean?
You have invented a very useful younger brother called Earnest in order that you may come up into town as often as you like. I have invented an invaluable permanent invalid called Bunbury in order that I may go down into the country as often as I choose. Bunbury is perfectly invaluable. If it wasn't for Bunbury's extraordinary bad health, for instance, I wouldn't be able to dine with you tonight at Willis's, for I really have been engaged to Aunt Augusta for more than a week.
I haven't asked you to dine with me anywhere
I
tonight.
know! You're absurdly careless about sending out invitations. It is very foolish of you. Nothing annoys people so much as not receiving invitations.
You had much better dine with your Aunt Augusta tonight.
I have not the smallest intention of doing anything of the kind. To begin with, I dine there on Monday, and once a week is quite enough to dine with one's own relations. In the second place, whenever I do dine there, I'm always treated as a member of the family and sent down with either no woman at all, or two. In the third place, I know perfectly well whom she will place me next to. Tonight, she will place me next to Mary Farquhar, who always flirts with her own husband across the dinner table. And that is not very pleasant. Indeed, it is not even decent, and that sort of thing is enormously on the increase. The amount of women in London who flirt with their own husbands is perfectly scandalous. It looks so bad. It's simply washing one's clean linen in public. Besides, now that I know you to be a confirmed Bunburyist, I naturally want to talk to you about Bunbury. I want to tell you the rules.
I'm not a Bunburyist at all. If Gwendolen accepts me, I'm going to kill my brother. Indeed, I think I'll kill him in any case. Cecily's a little too interested in him. It's rather a bore. So I'm going to get rid of Earnest, and I think it advisable for you to do the same with your Mr. whatever your invalid friend's name is.
Nothing will induce me to part with Bunbury, and if you ever get married, which seems to me to be extremely problematic, you will be very glad to know Bunbury. A man who marries without knowing Bunbury has a very tedious time of it.
If I marry a charming girl like Gwendolen, I won't. And she is the only girl I ever saw in my life I would marry. I won't want to know Bunbury.
Then your wife will. You don't seem to realize that in married life, 3 years company and 2 is gone.
That, my dear young friend, is the corrupt theory that the French drama has been propounding for the last 50 years.
Yes, and that the happy English home is proved in half the time.
For heaven's sake, don't try to be cynical. It's perfectly easy to be cynical.
It isn't easy to be anything nowadays. There's such a lot of beastly competition about it. That must be Aunt Augusta. Only relatives or creditors ever ring in that Wagnerian matter. Now, if I get her out of the way for 10 minutes' time, so that you can have an opportunity of proposing to Gwendolen, may I dine with you tonight at Willis's?
Oh, I suppose so, if you want to.
Yes, but you must be serious about it. I hate people who are not serious about meals. It is so shallow.
Lady Bracknell, Miss Fairfax.
Good afternoon, dear Algernon. I hope you're behaving well.
Oh, I'm feeling very well, Aunt Augusta.
Quite the same thing. In fact, the two things rarely go together.
Dear me, you are smart.
I am always smart. Am I not, Mr. Worthing?
You are quite perfect, Miss Fairfax.
Oh, I hope I'm not that. It would leave no room for developments, and I intend to develop in many directions.
I'm sorry if we're a bit late, Algernon, but I was obliged to call on dear Lady Harbury. I haven't seen her since her poor husband's death. I've never seen a woman so altered. She looks quite 20 years younger. And I've got a tea from those nice cucumber sandwiches you promised me.
Certainly, Aunt Augusta.
Gwendolen, won't you come and sit by me?
Thanks, Mamma. I'm quite comfortable where I am.
Lane, why are there no cucumber sandwiches? I ordered them specially.
There were no cucumbers in the market this morning, sir. I went down twice.
No cucumbers?
No cucumbers, not even for ready money.
That will do, Lane. Thank you. I am greatly distressed, Aunt Augusta, about there being no cucumbers, not even for ready money.
It really makes no matter, Algernon. It's incumbent to Lady Harbury, who seems to be living entirely for pleasure now.
I hear her hair has turned quite golden from grief.
It has changed, though, from what I cannot say. Thank you. I've got quite a treat for you tonight, Algernon. I've arranged for you to go down with Mary Farquhar. She's such a nice woman and so attentive to her husband. It's delightful to watch them.
I'm afraid, Aunt Augusta, I shall have to give up the pleasure of dining with you tonight after all.
I should hope not, Algernon. It would put my table completely out. Your poor uncle will have to dine upstairs. Fortunately, he's accustomed to that.
It is a great bore, and I need hardly say a terrible disappointment to me. But I have just had a telegram to say that my poor friend Bunbury is very ill again. They seem to think I should be with him.
Very strange. This Mr. Bunbury seems to suffer from curiously bad health.
Oh, yes, Bunbury is a dreadful influence.
Well, if you'll ask me, I think it's about time this Mr. Bunbury made up his mind whether he was going to live or die. This shilly-shallying with the question is absurd. Although I anyway approve of the modern sympathy of invalids. Illness is hardly a thing to be encouraged in others. Health is the primary duty of life. Always telling your co for that, but it never seems to take much notice. As far as his ailment is concerned, I'd be much obliged if you asked this Mr. Bunbury from me if it'd be that so kind as not to have a relapse on Saturday. For I rely on you to arrange my music for me. It's my last reception, and I want something that will encourage conversation, particularly at the end of the season when everyone is said practically whatever they had to say, which in most cases was probably not much.
I'll speak to Bunbury, Aunt Augusta, if he is still conscious, and I think I can promise you he'll be all right by Saturday. Of course, the music is a great difficulty. You see, if one plays good music, people don't listen, and if one plays bad music, people don't talk. But I'll run over the program I've gone at, if you will kindly come with me to the next week for a moment.
Thank you, Algernon. I'm sure the programme, after a few expurgations, will be quite delightful, but French I simply cannot possibly allow. Most people consider it improper and either look shocked, which is vulgar, or laugh, which is worse. But German sounds to me a thoroughly respectable language, and indeed, I believe is so. Gwendolen, you will accompany me?
Certainly, Mamma.
Charming day it has been, Miss Fairfax.
Ray, don't talk to me about the weather, Mr. Worthing. Whenever people talk to me about the weather, I always feel quite certain that they mean something else, and that makes me so nervous.
I do mean something else,
I thought so. In fact, I am never wrong.
and I would like to take advantage of Lady Brockman's temporary absence.
I would certainly advise you to do so. Mamma has a way of coming back suddenly into a room that I've often had to speak to her about.
Miss Fairfax, ever since I met you, I've admired you more than any girl I've ever met since I met you.
I'm quite aware of the fact. And I often wish that in public, at any rate, you had been more demonstrative. For me, you have always had an irresistible fascination. Even before I met you, I was far from indifferent to you. We live, as I hope you know, Mr. Worthing, in an age of ideals. The fact is constantly mentioned in the more expensive monthly magazines and has reached the provincial pulpits, I'm told. And my ideal has always been to love someone of the name of Earnest. There is something in that name that inspires absolute confidence. The moment Algernon first mentioned to me that he had a friend called Earnest, I knew I was destined to love you.
You really love me, Gwendolen?
Passionately.
Oh, darling, you don't know how happy you've made me.
My own Earnest!
But you don't need to say that you couldn't love me if my name wasn't Ernest.
But your name is Ernest.
Yes, I know it is, but something else. Do you mean to say you couldn't love me then?
That is clearly a metaphysical speculation, and like most metaphysical speculations, has very little reference at all to the actual facts of real life as we know them.
Well, personally, darling, and to speak quite candidly, I don't much care for the name of Ernest. I don't think the name suits me at all.
It suits you perfectly. It is a divine name. It has a music of its own. It produces vibrations.
Well, I think there are lots of other, much nicer names. I think Jack, for instance.
Jack. No. There is very little music in the name Jack, if any at all indeed. I have known several Jacks, and they all, without exception, have been more than usually plain. Besides, Jack is often a notorious domesticity for John. And I pity any woman who is married to a man called John. She would probably never be allowed to know the entrancing pleasure of a single moment's solitude. The only really safe name is Ernest.
Gwendolen, I must get christened at once. We must get married at once. There's no time to be lost.
Married, Mr. Worthing.
Well, surely, Gwendolen, you know that I love you. And that you've led me to believe, Miss Fairfax, that you're not absolutely indifferent to me.
I adore you. But you have not proposed to me yet. Marriage has not been talked about. The subject has not even been touched on.
Well, may I propose to you now?
I would certainly advise you to do so. And to spare you any possible disappointment, Mr. Worthing, I think it only fair to tell you quite frankly beforehand that I am fully determined to accept
Well, you know what I've got to say to you.
Yes, but you don't say it.
When will you marry me?
Oh, of course I will, darling. How long you've been about it! I'm afraid you've had very little experience in how to propose.
My own one, I've never loved anyone in the world so much as you.
Yes, but men often propose for practice. Gerald does. All my girlfriends tell me so. What lovely brown eyes you have, Ernest. They're quite brown.
Mr. Worthing! Rise, sir, from that silly recumbent posture at once! It's most indecorous.
Mamma! I must beg you to retire. This is no place for you. Besides, Mr. Worthing has not quite finished yet.
Finished what, may I ask?
I am engaged to Mr. Worthing, Mamma.
Pardon me, Gwendolen, you're not engaged to anyone. When you do become engaged, I or your father, should his help permit him, will inform you of the fact. An engagement should always come on a young girl's surprise. It is hardly a thing she can be expected to arrange for herself. Now, if your questions put you, Mr. Worthing, while I'm making these inquiries, you will wait for me below in the carriage, Gwendolen. Mamma, in the carriage, Gwendolen! Gwendolen, the carriage!
Yes, Mamma.
May I have a seat, Mr. Worthing?
Thank you, Lady Bracknell. I prefer standing.
I feel bound to tell you that you are not on my list of eligible young men. Oh, I have the same list as the Duchess of Bolton. We work together, in fact. However, I would be willing to enter your name should your answers be what a truly affectionate mother requires. Do you smoke?
Yes, I must admit, I smoke.
Oh, I'm glad to hear it. A man should always have an occupation. There are far too many idle. What is your age?
29?
A very good age to be married. I've always been under the impression that a man who desires to be married should either know everything or nothing. Which do you know?
I know nothing, Lady Bracknell.
I'm pleased to hear it. I do not approve of anything that tampers with natural ignorance. Ignorance is like a delicate, exotic fruit. Touch it, and the bloom is gone. The whole theory of modern education is radically unsound. Fortunately, in England, it produces no effect whatsoever. We can take it most likely to acts of violence in Grosvenor Square prove a serious threat to the upper classes. What is your income?
Between 7,000 and 8,000 a year.
In land or in investments?
Investments, chiefly.
That is satisfactory. What with what is expected of one during one's life and what is exacted from one after one's death. Now it has ceased to be profit or pleasure, provides one with position and prevents one from keeping it up. That's all that can be said about land.
I have a country house with some land, of course, attached to it, about 1,500 acres, I believe. But I do not depend on that for my real income. In fact, as far as I can make out, the poachers are the only people who make anything out of it.
A country house? How many bedrooms? Well, that can be cleared up later. You have a townhouse, I hope. A girl with a sweet, unspoiled nature like Gwendolen could hardly be expected to reside in the country.
I have a house in Belgrave Square, though it is let by the year to a Lady Bloxham. I can get it back whenever I like at 6 months' notice.
Lady Bloxham? I don't know her.
Oh, she goes about very little. She's a lady considerably advanced in years.
Yes, but nowadays that's not a sign of a respectability of character. What number?
149.
The unfashionable side. I thought there was something. However, that could easily be altered.
Do you mean the fashion or the side?
Both, if necessary, I presume. What are your politics?
I'm afraid I have none. I'm a liberal unionist.
Oh, they count as Tories. They dine with us, or show up in the evening, at any rate. Now on to minor matters. Are both your parents living?
I have lost both my parents.
Mr. Worthing, to lose one parent may be regarded as misfortune. To lose both looks like carelessness. Your father was evidently a man of some wealth. Was he born in what the radical papers call the purple of commerce, or did he rise from the ranks of aristocracy?
I'm afraid I really don't know. The fact is, I said, Lady Bracknell, that I had lost both my parents. It would be nearer the truth to say that my parents seem to have lost me. I don't really know who I am by birth. I was found.
Found?
Old Mr. Thomas Cardew, a very charitable and kindly dispositioned gentleman, found me and gave me the name of Worthing, because he happened to have a first-class ticket for Worthing in his pocket at the time. Worthing is a place in Sussex. It is a seaside resort.
And where did this charitable gentleman, a first-class ticket for a seaside resort, find you?
In a handbag.
A handbag?
Yes, Lady Bracknell, a handbag. A somewhat large, black leather handbag with handles to it. An ordinary handbag, in fact.
In what locality did this Mr. James,
Mr. Thomas, how do you find this ordinary handbag?
In the cloakroom at Victoria Station. It was given to him in mistake for his own.
Cloakroom at Victoria Station?
Yes, the Brighton line.
The line is immaterial! Mr. Worthing, I must confess, I feel somewhat bewildered by what you have just told me. To be born, or at any rate, bred in a handbag, whether it had handles or not, seems to me to show a contempt for the moral decencies of family life that remind me of the worst excesses of the French Revolution, and I assume you know what that unfortunate movement led to. As for the locality, a cloakroom in a railway station might serve to conceal a certain social indiscretion. Indeed, has probably been used for that purpose before now, but it can hardly be regarded as a basis for recognized position in good society.
May I ask you then, what you would advise me to do? I need hardly say I would do anything in the world to ensure Gwendolyn's happiness.
I strongly advise you, Mr. Worthing, to acquire some relations and make a definite effort to produce at either rate a parent of either sex before the season is quite over.
I don't see how I could possibly manage to do that. I can produce the handbag at any moment. I really think that should quite satisfy me.
Me, sir? What has it to do with me? You can hardly expect that I or Lord Bracknell would allow our only daughter, a girl bred with the utmost care, to marry into a cloakroom and form an alliance with a parcel. Good day, Mr. Worthing.
Good morning! Oh, for heaven's sakes, Algy, don't sing that ghastly tune. How idiotic you are.
Didn't it go off all right, old boy? You don't mean to say that Gwendolyn refused you, did you? I know it is a way she has. She is always refusing people. I think it is most ill-natured of her.
Gwendolyn is as right as a trivet. As far as she is concerned, we are engaged. Her mother is perfectly unbearable. I've never met such a gorgon. I don't really know what a gorgon is like, but I'm quite sure Lady Bracknell is one. In any case, she's a monster without being a myth. And I beg your pardon, Algy, I suppose I shouldn't be talking about your own aunt in that way before you.
My dear boy, I love hearing my relations abused. It's the only thing that makes me put up with them at all. Relations are simply a tedious pack of people who haven't got the remotest knowledge about how to live, nor the smallest instinct about when to die.
Oh, that is nonsense.
It isn't.
Well, I won't argue with you about the matter. You always want to argue about things.
That is exactly what things were originally made for.
Upon my word, if I thought that, I'd just shoot myself. You don't think that there's any chance of Gwendolyn becoming like her mother in about 150 years, do you?
All women become like their mothers. That is their tragedy. No man has that his.
Is that clever?
It is perfectly phrased and quite as true as any observation in civilized life should be.
I'm sick to death of cleverness. You can't go anywhere without meeting clever people. The thing has become an absolute public nuisance. I wish to goodness we had a few fools left.
We have
I should extremely like to meet them. What do they talk about?
the fools, oh the clever people, of course.
What fools?
By the way, did you tell Gwendolyn yet the truth about your being Earnest in town and Jack in the country?
My dear fellow, the truth isn't the sort of thing that one tells to a nice, sweet, refined girl. What extraordinary ideas
The only way to behave to a woman is to make love to her if she is pretty, to someone else if she is plain.
That is nonsense.
What about your brother? What about the profligate Earnest?
Oh. By the end of the week, I suppose I shall have got rid of him. I'll say he died in Paris of apoplexy. Lots of people die of apoplexy, don't they, Algy?
Yes, but it's hereditary, my dear fellow. It's a sort of thing that runs in families. You'd much better say a severe chill.
You are sure a severe chill isn't the sort of thing that runs in families or anything of that kind?
Of course it isn't.
Very well. My poor brother Earnest is to be carried off suddenly in Paris by a severe chill. That gets rid of him.
But you said that Miss Cardew was a little too much interested in your poor brother Earnest. Won't she feel his loss a good deal?
Oh, no, that is all right. Cecily is not a silly, romantic girl, I'm glad to say. She's got a capital appetite, goes on long walks, and pays no attention to her lessons.
I should rather like to see Cecily.
I will take very good care that you never do. She's excessively pretty and only just 18.
Have you told Gwendolyn that you have an excessively pretty ward who is only just 18?
Oh, one doesn't just blurt these things out to people! Gwendolyn and Cecily are perfectly certain to become extremely great friends. I'll bet you anything you like. Half an hour after they've met, they will be calling each other sister.
Women only do that after they've called each other a lot of other things first.
never knew you when you weren't.
What shall we do after dinner? Go to a theatre?
Oh no, I love listening.
Let us go to a club.
Oh no, I hate talking.
Well, we might trot around the Empire at 10.
Oh no, I can't bear looking at things. It's so silly.
What shall we do?
Nothing!
It is awfully hard work doing nothing. Of course, I don't mind hard work, but there is no ostrich of any kind.
Miss Fairfax!
Gwendolyn, upon my word.
Algy, kindly turn your back. I have something very particular to say to Mr. Worthing.
Really, Gwendolyn, I don't think I can allow this at all.
Algy, you always adopt a strictly immoral attitude towards life. You're not quite old enough to do that yet. Ernest, we may never be married. From the expression on Mamma's face, I fear we never shall. Few parents nowadays pay any regard to what their children say to them. The old-fashioned respect for the young is fast dying out. Whatever influence I ever had over Mamma, I lost at the age of 3. Although she may prevent us from becoming man and wife, and I may marry someone else and marry often, nothing she can possibly do can alter my eternal devotion to you.
Gwendolyn, darling.
The story of your romantic origin, as related to me by Mamma with unpleasing comments, naturally stirred the deeper fibers of my nature. Your Christian name has an irresistible fascination. The simplicity of your character makes you exquisitely incomprehensible to me. The town address at the Albany I have. What is your address in the country?
The manor house. Wootton, Hertfordshire.
It's a good postal service, I suppose. It may be necessary to do something desperate. That, of course, will require serious consideration. I will communicate with you daily.
I don't know.
How long do you remain in town?
Till Monday.
Good. Algy, you may turn
Thanks,
now.
I turned around already.
You may also ring the bell.
You will let me see you to your carriage, my dear.
Certainly.
I will see Miss Fairfax out.
Yes, sir.
Tomorrow, Lane, I'm going bunburying.
Yes, sir.
I shall probably not be back till Monday. You can put up my dress clothes, my smoking jacket, and all the Bunbury suits.
Yes, sir.
I hope tomorrow will be a fine day, Lane.
It never is, sir.
Lane, you're a perfect pessimist.
I try my best to satisfaction, sir.
I wish Uncle Jack would allow that unfortunate young man, his brother, to come down here sometimes. We might have a good influence over him, Miss Prism. I'm sure you certainly would. You know, German and geology and things of that kind influence a man very much.
I do not think that even I could have any effect on a man whose character is, according to his own brother's admission, irretrievably weak and vacillating indeed. I do not think that I would even desire to reclaim him. I'm not in favor of this modern mania of trying to turn bad people into good people at a moment's notice. As a man sows, so let him reap. You must put away your diary, dear Cecily. I really do not see why you should keep a diary at all.
I keep a diary in order to enter the wonderful secrets of my life. If I didn't write them down, I should probably forget all about them.
Memory, my dear Cecily, is the diary that we all carry about with us.
Yes, but it usually chronicles the things that have never happened and couldn't possibly have happened. I believe that memory is responsible for nearly all of those 3-volume novels that Muddy sent.
Do not speak slightingly of the 3-volume novel, Cecily, I wrote for myself in earlier days.
Did you really, Miss Prism? How wonderfully clever you are! I hope it did not end happily. I don't like novels that end happily. They depress me so much.
The good ended happily and the bad unhappily. That is what fiction means.
I suppose so. But it seems very unfair. And was your novel ever published?
Oh, alas, no. The manuscript, unfortunately, was abandoned. I use the word in the sense of lost or mislaid. To your work, child. These speculations are profitless.
Oh, but I see dear Dr. Chasuble coming up through the garden.
Dr. Chasuble, this is indeed a pleasure.
And how are we this morning, Miss Prism? You are, I trust, well.
Oh, Miss Prism has just been complaining of a slight headache. I thought it would do her so much good to go for a short stroll with you in the park, Dr. Chasuble.
Cecily, I have not mentioned anything about a headache.
Oh, dear Miss Prism, I know that. But I felt instinctively that you had a headache. Indeed, I was thinking about that and not about my German lesson when the rector came in.
I hope, Cecily, you are not inattentive.
Oh, I'm afraid I am.
That's strange, for I'm fortunate enough to be Miss Prism's pupil. I'll hang upon her lips. Of course, my correspondence gone from, Bees. Mr. Worthing, I suppose, has not returned from town yet.
We do not expect him till Monday afternoon.
Yes, he's not one of those whose sole aim is enjoyment, as by all accounts that unfortunate young man his brother seems to be. But I must not disturb Egeria and her pupil any longer.
Egeria? My name is Letitia, dear doctor.
A classical allusion merely, drawn from the pagan authors. I shall see you both no doubt at evensong.
I believe, dear doctor, that I will have a stroll with you. I find that I have a headache after all. I believe a walk will do it good.
With pleasure, Miss Prism, with pleasure. We might go as far as the schools and back.
That would be delightful. Cecily, you will read your political economy in my absence. The chapter on the fall of the rupee, you may omit. It is somewhat too sensational. Even these metallic problems have their melodramatic side.
Horrid political economy, horrid geography, and horrid germ.
Miss Cuddy, Cecily, Mr. Ernest Worthing has just driven over from the station. He's got his luggage with him.
Mr. Earnest Worthing, being from the Albany West. Uncle Jack's brother? Did you tell him Mr. Worthing was in town?
Yes, miss, he seemed very much disappointed. I mentioned to him that you and Miss Prism were in the garden. He said that he would like to speak with you, privately, and for a moment.
We'll ask Mr. Ernest Worthing to come out here. I suppose you'd better see the housekeeper about a room for him.
Yes, miss.
I have never met any really wicked person before. I'm rather frightened. I'm so afraid he will look just like everyone else. He does.
You are my little cousin Cecily, I'm sure.
But you are under some strange mistake. I am not little. In fact, I believe that I am more than usually tall for my age, but I am your cousin Cecily. You, I see from your card, are Uncle Jack's brother, my cousin Ernest. My wicked cousin Ernest.
Well, I am not really wicked at all, cousin Cecily. You mustn't think that I'm wicked.
Well, if you are not, and you have certainly been deceiving us all in a very inexcusable manner, I hope that you have not been leading a double life, pretending to be wicked and being really good all the time. That would be hypocrisy.
Oh, of course I have been rather reckless.
I'm glad to hear it.
In fact, now you mention the subject, I have been very bad in my own small way.
Well, I don't think you should be so proud of that. Though I am sure it must have been very pleasant.
It's much pleasant to be here with you.
I can't understand how you are here at all. Uncle Jack won't be back until Monday afternoon.
That is a great disappointment. I'm obliged to go up by the first train on Monday morning. I have a business appointment that I am anxious to make.
Couldn't you miss it anywhere but in London?
No, the appointment is in London.
Well, I know, of course, how important it is not to keep a business engagement if one wants to retain any sense of the beauty of life. But still, I think you'd better wait until Uncle Jack arrives. I know he wants to speak to you about your emigrating.
About my what?
You're emigrating. Uncle Jack has gone up to buy your outfit.
I certainly won't let Jack buy my outfit. He has no taste in neckties at all.
Well, I don't think you'll require a necktie. Uncle Jack is sending you to Australia.
Australia. I'd sooner die.
Uncle Jack said at dinner on Wednesday night that you would have to choose between this world, the next world, and Australia.
Oh, well, the accounts I've received of Australia and the next world are not particularly encouraging. This world is good enough for me, cousin Cecily.
Yes. But are you good enough for it?
I'm afraid I'm not that. That's why I want you to reform me. You might make that your mission if you don't mind, cousin Cecily.
Well, I'm afraid I have no time this afternoon.
Would you mind if I reforming myself this afternoon?
It is rather quixotic of you, but I think you should try.
I will. I feel better already.
You look a little worse.
Well, that is because I'm hungry.
Oh, helpless of me. I should have remembered that one is going to lead an entirely new life. One requires regular and wholesome meals. Won't you come in?
You are too much alone here, Dr. Tosman. You should get married. A misanthrope I can understand, a womanthrope never.
Believe me, I do not deserve so neologistic a phrase. The precept, as well as the practice of the primitive church, was distinctly against matrimony.
That is obviously why the primitive church has not lasted up until the present day. You do not seem to realize, dear doctor, that in persistently remaining single, a man converts himself into a permanent public temptation. Men should be more careful. This very celibacy leads weaker vessels astray.
But is not a man equally attractive when married?
No married man is ever attractive except to his wife.
And often I've been told not even to her.
That depends on the intellectual sympathies of the woman. Maturity can always be depended on. Ripeness can be trusted. Young women are green. I spoke horticulturally. My metaphor was drawn from fruits. But where is Cecily?
Perhaps you followed us to the schools.
Mr. Worthing?
Mr. Worthing?
This is indeed a surprise. We did not look for you till Monday afternoon.
I have returned sooner than I expected. Dr. Chasuble, I hope you are well.
Dear Mr. Worthing, I trust this garb of woe does not betoken some terrible calamity.
My brother,
More shameful debts and extravagance?
dead.
Your brother Ernest, dead.
Quite dead.
Well, what a lesson for him, I trust in a prophet lion.
Dear Mr. Worthing, I offer you my sincere condolence. You have at least the consolation of knowing that you are always the most generous and forgiving of brothers.
Poor Ernest. He had many faults, but it is a sad, sad thought.
Very sad indeed. Were you with him at the end?
No, he had died abroad, in Paris, in fact. I had a telegram from the manager of the Grand Hotel.
Was the cause of death mentioned?
A severe chill, it seemed.
As a man sows, so shall he reap.
Charity, dear Miss Prism, charity. None of us are perfect. I myself am peculiarly susceptible to draught. Will the interment take place here?
No, he seemed to have expressed a desire to be buried in Paris.
In Paris? I fear that hardly points to any very serious states of mind at the last. You would no doubt wish that I make some slight allusion to this tragic domestic affliction next Sunday. My sermon on the meaning of the man in the wilderness can be adapted to almost any occasion, joyful, or as in its present case, distressing. I have preached at harvest celebrations, christenings, confirmation, days of humiliation, and festival days. The last time I delivered it was as a charity sermon on behalf of the Society of Discontent among the upper orders. The bishop who was present was much struck by some of the analogies I drew.
Oh, never mind. You mentioned christenings, I think. I suppose you know how to christen, all right? I mean, of course, you are continually christening, aren't you?
It is, I regret to say, one of the rector's most constant duties in this parish. I've often spoken to the poorer classes on the subject, but they do not seem to know what thrift is.
But is there any particular infant in whom you are interested, Mr. Worthy? Your brother was unmarried, was he not?
People who live entirely for pleasure usually are.
But it is not for any child, dear doctor. I'm very fond of no. The fact is, I would like to be christened myself this afternoon if you have nothing better to do.
But surely, Mr. Worthy, you've been christened already.
I don't remember anything about it.
Have you any great doubts on the subject?
I certainly intend to have, though I don't know if the thing would bother you any, or if you think I'm a little too old now.
Not at all. The sprinkling and indeed the immersion of adults is a perfectly canonical practice.
Immersion?
You need not have apprehensions. Sprinkling is all that is necessary, or indeed, I believe, advisable, or whether it's so changeable.
Oh, I should trot around about 5 o'clock if that would suit you.
Perfectly. In fact, I have 2 similar ceremonies to perform at that time. The case of twins that occurred recently in one of the outlying cottages of your own estate.
Oh, I don't think it much fun to be christened along with other babies. It would be childish. I do.
Perfectly. And now, Mr. Worthing, I will not intrude any longer into a house of sorrow. I merely beg you not be much about death. Like great and seem to us as bitter trials are often blessings in disguise.
This seems to me a blessing of an extremely obvious kind.
Oh, Uncle Jack! Oh, I am pleased to see you back. But what horrid clothes you've got on. Do go and change them.
Cecily!
My child.
What is the matter, Uncle Jack? Do look happy. You look as if you had a toothache, and I've got such a surprise for you. Who do you think is in the dining room? Your brother! Your brother Ernest, he arrived about half an hour ago.
That is nonsense. I have no brother.
Don't say that. However badly he may have behaved to you in the past, he is still your brother. You couldn't be so heartless as to disown him. I'll tell him to come out, and you'll shake hands with him, won't you, Uncle Jack?
These are very joyful tidings.
After we had all been resigned to his loss, I find his sudden return peculiarly distressing.
Whether it's in the dining room, I don't know what it all means. I think it's perfectly absurd. Good heavens!
Brother John! I have come down from town to tell you that I am very sorry for all the trouble I have given you and that I intend to lead a better life in the future.
Uncle Jack, you're not going to refuse your own brother's hand.
Nothing will induce me to take his hand. I think he's coming down here disgraceful. He knows perfectly well why.
Oh, Uncle Jack, do be nice. There is some good in everyone. Why, Ernest has just been telling me about his poor invalid friend, Mr. Bunbury, who he goes to visit. Surely there must be much good one who is kind to the invalid and leaves the pleasures of luncheon to sit by a bed of pain.
Oh, he's been talking to you about Bunbury, has he?
Oh, yes, Ernest told me all about poor Mr. Bunbury and his terrible state of health.
Bunbury? Well, I won't be having talked to you about Bunbury or anything else. It's enough to drive one perfectly frantic.
Of course, I admit that the faults were all on my side, but I must say that I think that Brother John's coldness to me is peculiarly painful. I expected a more enthusiastic welcome, especially considering it is the first time I've come here.
Uncle Jack! If you don't shake hands with Ernest, I will never forgive you.
Never forgive me.
Never, never, never.
Well, this is the last time I shall ever do it.
It is pleasant, is it not, to see so perfect a reconciliation? We might make these two brothers together.
Cecily, you will come with us.
Certainly, Miss Prism. My little task of reconciliation is over.
You've done a beautiful action today, dear child.
We must not be too...
I feel very happy.
You young scoundrels, you've got to leave this place as soon as possible. I don't allow any Bunburying here.
What's Mr. Ernest thinks in the room next to yours, sir? I suppose things are right.
What?
Mr. Ernest's luggage, sir. I have unpacked it and put it in the room next to your own.
His luggage.
Yes, sir. 3 portmanteaus, 2 hat boxes, a dressing case, and a large luncheon basket.
I'm afraid I can't stay more than a week this time.
Merriman, order the dog cart back at once. Mr. Earnest has been suddenly called back to town.
Yes, sir.
What a fearful liar you are, Jack. I've not been called back to town at all.
Yes, you have.
I haven't heard anyone call me.
Your duty as a gentleman calls you back.
My duty as a gentleman has never interfered with my pleasures in the smallest degree.
Quite understand that.
Well, Cecily is a darling.
You are not to talk of Miss Cardew like that. I don't like it.
Well, I don't like your clothes. You look perfectly ridiculous. Why not that you go up and change? It is perfectly childish to be in deep mourning for a man who is actually staying for a whole week with you in your house as a guest. I call it grotesque.
You are not certainly staying with me for a week or anything else. You've got to leave by the 4:05.
I certainly won't leave you so long as you're in mourning. It would be most unfriendly. You would stay with me if I were in mourning. I suppose I should be very unkind if you didn't.
Well, will you go if I change my clothes?
Yes, if you are not too long. I never saw anybody take so long to dress with such little result.
Well, it is always better than you being overdressed.
If I am occasionally a little overdressed, I make up for it by being always immensely overeducated.
Your vanity is ridiculous. Your conduct an outrage, and your presence in my garden utterly absurd. However, you've got to leave by the 4:05, and I hope you will have a pleasant journey back to town. This Bunburying, as you call it, has not been a great success for you.
I think it has been a great success. I'm in love with Cecily, and that is everything. But I must see her before I go and make arrangements for another Bunbury. There she is.
Oh, I nearly came back to water the roses. I thought you were with Uncle Jack.
He's gone to order the dog cart for me.
Oh, is he going to take you for a nice drive?
He's going to send me away.
Have we got to part?
I'm afraid so. It's a very painful part.
Oh, It is always painful to part from people whom one has known for a very brief space of time. The absence of all friends one can endure with equanimity, but even a momentary separation from anyone to whom one has just been introduced is almost unbearable.
And our cart is waiting, sir.
It can wait, Merriman. 5 minutes.
Yes.
I hope, Cecily, I shall not offend you if I state quite frankly and openly that you seem to me to be in every way the visible personification of absolute perfection.
Your breakfast does you great credit, Ernest. If you'll allow me, I will copy your remarks into my diary.
Do you really keep a diary? I give anything to look at. May I?
Oh, no. It is simply a very young girl's record of her own thoughts and impressions, and consequently meant for publication. When it appears in volume form, I hope you'll order a copy. But pray, Ernest, don't stop. I delight in taking down from dictation. I have reached absolute perfection. Go on now, I'm quite ready for more. Don't cough, Ernest. When one is dictating, one should speak fluently and not cough. Besides, I don't know how to spell a cough.
Cecily, ever since I first looked upon your wonderful and incomparable beauty, I have dared to love you wildly, passionately, devotedly, hopelessly.
I don't think that you should tell me that you love me wildly, passionately, devotedly, hopelessly. Hopelessly doesn't seem to make much sense, does it?
Our cart is at the door.
Tell her to come round next week at the same hour.
Yes, sir.
Uncle Jack would be very much annoyed if he knew that you were staying on till next week at the same hour.
I don't care about Jack. I don't care for anybody in the whole world but you. I love you, Cecily. You will marry me, won't you?
You silly boy. Of course. We've been engaged for the last 3 months.
For the last 3 months?
Yes, it will be exactly 3 months on Thursday.
But how did we become engaged?
Well, ever since dear Uncle Jack first confessed to us that he had a younger brother, who was very wicked and bad, you, of course, have formed the chief topic of conversation between myself and Miss Prism. And, of course, a man who's much talked about is always very attractive. One feels there must be something in him after all. I dare say it was foolish of me, but I fell in love with you, Ernest.
Darling. And when was the engagement actually settled?
On the 14th of February last. Worn out by your entire ignorance of my existence, I determined to end the matter one way or the other. And after a long struggle with myself, I accepted you under this dear old tree. The next day I went out and bought this little ring in your name. Here's a little bangle with the true lover's knot that I promised you always to wear.
Very pretty. Did I give you this?
Yes, you were a thing of taste, Ernest. It's the excuse I've always given for your leading such a bad life. Oh, and this is the box in which I keep all your dear letters.
My letters. But Cecily, I have never written you any letters.
You need hardly remind me of that, Ernest. I remember only too well that I was forced to write you letters for you. I wrote almost 3 times a week and sometimes oftener.
Do let me read them, Cecily.
Oh no, I couldn't possibly. They would be far too conceited. The 3 you wrote me after I'd broken off the engagement are so beautiful and so badly spelled. Even now I can hardly read them without crying.
But was our engagement ever broken off?
Of course it was. On the 22nd of last March. You can see the entry if you like. Today I broke off my engagement with Ernest. I feel it is better to do so. The weather still continues charming.
Why on earth did you break it off? What had I done? I done nothing at all. Cecily, I'm very much hurt indeed to hear you broke it off, particularly when the weather was so charming.
It would hardly have been a really serious engagement if it hadn't been broken off at least once. I forgave you before the week was out.
You'll never break off our engagement again, Cecily.
I don't think I could break it off, now that I've actually met you. Besides, of course, there is the question of your name.
Yes, of course.
You mustn't laugh at me, darling, but it had always been a girlish dream of mine to love someone whose name was Ernest. husband is not called Ernest.
But, my dear child, you mean to say you couldn't love me if I had some other name?
But what name?
Any name you like. Algernon, for instance.
I don't like the name of Algernon.
Well, my own dear, sweet, loving little darling, I really can't see why you should object to the name of Algernon. It is not at all a bad name. In fact, it is rather an aristocratic name. Half the chaps who get into the bankruptcy court are called Algernon. But seriously, my name is Algie, couldn't you love me?
I might respect you, Ernest. I might admire your character, but I fear that I will not be able to give you my undivided attention.
Cecily, your rector here is, I suppose, thoroughly experienced in the practice of all the rites and ceremonials of the church.
Oh, yes. Dr. Chasuble is a most learned man. He has never written a single book, so you can imagine how much he knows.
I must see him at once on a most important christening. I mean, on most important business. I shan't be away more than half an hour.
Well, considering that we have been engaged since February the 14th, and that I only met you today for the first time, I think it is rather hard that you should leave me for so long a period as half an hour. Couldn't you make it 20 minutes?
I'll be back in time.
What an impetuous boy he is! I like his hair so much! His proposal into my diary.
Miss Fairfax has just called us and Mr. Worthing on very important business in Fairfax States.
Well, isn't Mr. Worthing in his library?
Mr. Worthing went in the direction of the rectory some time ago.
Well, perhaps the lady to come out here. Mr. Worthing is sure to be back soon, and you can drink tea.
Yes, miss.
Miss Fairfax? I suppose one of the many good elderly women who are associated with Uncle Jack and some of his philanthropic work in London. I don't quite like women who are interested in philanthropic work. I think it's just so forward of them.
Miss Fairfax.
Oh. Hey, let me introduce myself to you. My name is Cecily Cardew.
Cecily Cardew! What a very sweet name. Something tells me that we are going to be great friends. I like you already more than I can say. My first impressions of people are never wrong.
Well, how nice of you to like me so much after we've known each other such a comparatively short time. Break it down.
I may call you Cecily Maynard.
With pleasure.
And you will always call me Gwendolyn, won't you?
If you like.
And that is all quite settled, is it not?
I hope so.
Perhaps this might be a favourable opportunity for my mentioning who I am.
Oh.
My father is Lord Bracknell. You have never heard of Papa, I suppose.
I don't think so.
Outside the family circle, Papa, I am glad to say, is entirely unknown. The home, I think that is quite as it should be, because the home seems to me to be the proper sphere for men. And certainly, once a man begins to neglect his domestic duties, he becomes painfully effeminate, does he not? And I don't like that. It makes men so very attractive. Cecily, Mamma, whose views on education are remarkably strict, has brought me up to be extremely short-sighted. It is part of the system. So do you mind my looking at you through my glasses?
Oh, not at all, Gwendolyn. I'm very fond of being looked at.
You are here on a short visit, I suppose.
Oh, no. I live here.
Really? Your mother, no doubt, or some other female relative of advanced years resides here also?
Oh, no, I have no mother, nor in fact any relations.
Indeed.
Yes. My dear guardian, with the assistance of Miss Prism, has the arduous task of looking after me.
Your guardian?
Yes, I am Mr. Worthing's ward.
Oh! Strange to me that he never mentioned he had a ward. How secretive of him. He grows more interesting hourly. I am not sure, however, that the news inspires me with feelings of unmixed delight. Cecily, I am very fond of you. I have loved you ever since I met you. But I am bound to state that now that I know that you are Mr. Worthing's ward, I cannot help expressing a wish that you were, well, just a little older than you seem to be, and not quite so very alluring in appearance. In fact, if I may speak candidly.
Oh, pray do. I think that whenever one has anything unpleasant to say, one should always be quite candid.
Well, to speak with perfect candor, Cecily, I wish you were fully 42 and more than usually plain for your age. right nature. He is the very soul of truth and honor. Disloyalty would be as impossible to him as deception. But even men of the noblest possible moral character are extremely susceptible to the influence of these physical charms of others. Modern, no less than ancient history, supplies us with many most painful examples of what I refer to. If it were not so, history would be quite unreadable.
I beg your pardon. Did you say Ernest?
Yes.
But it is not Mr. Ernest Worthing who is my guardian. It is his brother, his elder brother.
Ernest never mentioned to me that he had a brother.
Oh, well, I am sorry to say they have not been on good terms for a long time.
That accounts for it. And now that I think of it, I have never heard any man mention his brother. The subject seems distasteful to most men. You have lifted a load from my mind. I was growing almost anxious. It would have been terrible if any cloud had come across a friendship like ours, would it not? Of course you are quite sure that it is not Mr. Ernest Worthing that is your guardian.
I'm quite sure. In fact, I'm going to be his. There's no reason why I should make a secret of it to you, dear Gwendolyn. Our little county newspaper is sure to chronicle of that next week. Mr. Ernest Worthing and I are engaged to be married.
There's been some flag error. Mr. Ernest Worthing is engaged to me. The announcement will appear in the Morning Post on Saturday at the latest.
I'm afraid there must be some misconception. Ernest proposed to me exactly 10 minutes ago.
Certainly very curious indeed. For he asked me to be his wife yesterday afternoon at 5:30. If you would care to verify the incident, pray do so. I never travel without my diary. One should always have something sensational to read in the train. I'm so sorry, Miss Cecily. Any disappointment to you, but I'm afraid I have the prior claim.
It would distress me more than I can tell you, dear Gwendolyn, if it caused you any mental or physical anguish, but I feel bound to point out that since Ernest proposed to you, he clearly has changed his mind.
If the poor fellow has been entrapped into any foolish promise, I shall consider it my duty to rescue him at once, and with a firm hand.
Whatever unfortunate entanglement my dear boy may have got into, I will never reproach him with it after we are married.
Do you look to me, Miss Cardew, as an entanglement? You are presumptuous. On an occasion of this kind, it becomes more than a moral duty to speak one's mind. It becomes a pleasure.
Do you suppress Miss Gerber? Entrapped Ernest into an engagement? How dare you? This is no time for wearing a shallow rascal's manners. When I see a spade, I call it a spade.
I am glad to say that I have never seen a spade. It is obvious that our social spheres have been widely differing.
Oh! Shall I lay the tea as usual? As usual.
Are there any interesting walks in the vicinity, Miss Cardew?
Oh yes, a great many. From the top of one of the hills quite close, one can see 5 counties.
5 counties? I don't think I should like that. I hate crowds.
I suppose that's why you live in town.
Quite a well-kept garden this is, Miss Cardew.
So glad you like it, Miss Fairfax.
I had no idea there were any flowers in the country.
Oh, flowers are as common here, Miss Fairfax, as people are in London.
Personally, I don't see how anybody manages to exist in the country, if anybody who is anybody does. The country always bores me to death.
That is clearly what the newspapers call agricultural depression, is it not? I believe the aristocracy are suffering very much from it just at present. It is almost an epidemic amongst them, I've been told. May I offer you some tea, Miss Fairfax?
Thank you. Detestable girl. I require tea. No, thank you. Sugar is not fashionable anymore.
Cake or bread and butter?
Bread and butter, please. Cake is rarely seen at the best houses nowadays.
And that, Miss Fairfax.
You have filled my tea with lumps of sugar. And though I asked most distinctly bread and butter, you have given me cake. I am known for the gentleness of my disposition and the extraordinary sweetness of my nature. But I warn you, Miss Cudgel, you may go too far.
Save my poor, innocent, trusting boy from the machinations of any other girl. There are no lengths to which I would not go.
I beg you, I distrusted you. I felt you were false and deceitful. I am never deceived on such matters. My first impressions of people are invariably right.
It seems to me, Miss Fairfax, that I am trespassing on your valuable time. No doubt you have many other calls of a similar character to make in the neighborhood. Oh, you... Oh.
Vile and Earnest, my own Earnest. A moment. May I ask if you are engaged to be married to this young lady?
To dear little Cecily, of course not. What could have put such an idea in your pretty little head?
Thank you. You may.
I knew there must be some misunderstanding. Miss Fairfax, the gentleman whose arm is at present round your waist is my guardian, Mr. John Worthing.
I beg your pardon?
This is Uncle Jack.
Jack?
May I ask, are you engaged to be married to this young lady?
To what young lady? Good heavens, Gwendolyn. Of course not. Wouldn't have put such an idea into your pretty little head.
Thank you. You may.
I felt there must be some slight error, Miss Cardew. The gentleman who is now embracing you is my cousin, Mr. Algernon Moncrief.
Algernon? Moncrief? Are you called Algernon?
I cannot deny it.
Oh.
Is your name really John?
I could deny it if I liked. I could deny anything if I liked. But my name, it really is John. It has been John for years.
It seems a gross deception has been practiced on both of us.
My poor wounded Cecily. You will always call me sister, will you not?
Question I would like to be allowed to put to my guardian.
An admirable idea. Mr. Worthing, there is just one question I would like to be permitted to put to you. Where's your brother Earnest? Since we are both engaged to be married to your brother Earnest, it is a matter of some importance to us to know where your brother Earnest is at present.
Gwendolyn. It pains me very much to have to speak the truth to you. Forced to speak the truth to you. It's the very first time in my life I've ever been reduced to such a painful position. I'm really quite inexperienced in doing anything of the kind. However, I can tell you quite candidly that I have no brother, Earnest. I have no brother at all. I never had a brother of any kind.
No brother at all?
Never.
Had you never a brother of any kind?
None. Not of any kind.
I'm afraid it is quite clear, Cecily, that neither of us are engaged to be married to anyone.
It is not a very pleasant position for a young girl suddenly to find herself in, is it?
Let us go to the house. They will hardly venture to come after us there.
No, men are so cowardly, aren't they?
This ghastly state of things is what you call bunburying, I suppose.
Yes, and a perfectly wonderful Bunbury. Wonderful Bunbury I've never had in my life.
You have no right to Bunbury here.
That is absurd. One has a right to Bunbury anywhere one chooses. Every serious Bunbury knows that.
Serious Bunbury! Heavens!
One must be serious about something if one wants to have any amusement in life. I happen to be serious about Bunbury. What you are serious about, I haven't got the remotest idea. About everything, I should fancy. You have such an absolutely trivial nature.
Well, the only small satisfaction I get out of the whole of this wretched business is that your friend Bunbury is quite exploded. You won't be able to run down to the country quite so often as you used to, dear Algie, and a very good thing, too.
Your brother is a little off-colour, isn't he, dear Jack? You won't be able to disappear to London quite so frequently as your wicked custom was. Not a bad thing either.
As for your conduct toward Miss Cardew, I really think your taking in a sweet, simple, innocent girl like that is quite inexcusable. To say nothing of the fact that she is my ward.
I can see no possible defence at all for your deceiving a brilliant, clever, thoroughly experienced young lady like Miss Fairfax, to say nothing of the fact that she is my cousin.
I wanted to be engaged to Gwendolyn, that is all. I love her.
I simply wanted to be engaged to Cecily. I adore
There is certainly no chance of you marrying Miss Cardew.
I don't think there is much likelihood, Jack, in you and Miss Fairfax being united.
That is no business of yours.
If it was my business, I wouldn't talk about it. It is very vulgar to talk about one's business. Only people like stockbrokers do that, and then merely at dinner parties.
How you can sit there, calmly eating muffins when we are in this horrible trouble, I can't quite make out. You seem to me to be perfectly heartless.
Well, I can't eat muffins in an agitated manner. The butter would probably get on my cups. One should always eat muffins quite calmly. It is the only way to eat them.
I say, it's perfectly heartless for you to be eating muffins at all under the circumstances.
When I'm in trouble, eating is the only thing that consoles me. Indeed, when I'm in really great trouble, as anyone who knows me intimately will tell you, I refuse everything except food and drink. I am eating muffins at the present moment because I am unhappy. Besides, I am particularly fond of muffins.
Well, that is no reason for you to eat them all in that broody way.
I wish you would have tea cake instead. I don't like tea cake.
Good heavens! I suppose a man may be able to eat his own muffins in his own garden.
But you just said it was perfectly heartless to eat muffins.
I say it was perfectly heartless for you to be eating muffins under the circumstances. That's a very different thing.
That's me, but the muffins are the same.
Oh, no! I wish to goodness you would go.
You can't possibly ask me to go. I haven't had my dinner yet. It's absurd. I never go anywhere without my dinner. Nobody ever does except for vegetarians and people like that. Besides, I have just made arrangements with Dr. Charles to be christened at 5:45 under the name of Earnest.
My dear fellow, the sooner you give up that nonsense, the better. I made arrangements this morning with Dr. Choswell to be christened at 5:30, and I naturally will take the name of Earnest. Gwendolyn would wish it. We can't both be christened Earnest. That is absurd. Besides, I have every right to be christened if I like. There is no evidence at all that I've ever been christened by anybody. I should think it extremely probable I never was, and so does Dr. Choswell. It's entirely different in your case. You've been christened already.
Yes, but I have not been christened for years.
Yes, but you've been christened. That is the important thing.
Quite so, so I know that my constitution can stand it. If you are not quite sure about your ever having been christened, I must say I think it rather dangerous you're venturing on it now. It might make you very unwell. Though you'd hardly have forgotten that someone very closely connected with you was very nearly carried off this week in Paris of a severe chill.
Yes, but you said yourself, a severe chill is not hereditary.
It used to be, I know, but I dare say it is now. Science is always making wonderful improvements.
Oh, that is nonsense.
Jack, you're a muffin, and I wish you wouldn't. I told you I was particularly fond of muffins.
But I hate tea cake.
Why then do you allow tea cake to be served up with your guests? What idea do you have of hospitality?
Algernon, I wish to goodness you would go. I don't want you here. Why don't you go?
I haven't quite finished my tea yet, and there is still one muffin left.
In fact, they do not follow us once into the house, as anyone else would have done, seems to me to show that they have some sense of shame left.
They have been eating muffins. That looks like repentance.
Do not seem to notice us at all. Couldn't you cough?
But I haven't got a cough.
Looking at us for different
They're approaching. It is very forward of them.
Let us preserve a dignified silence.
Certainly, it's the only thing to do now.
This dignified silence does not seem to produce a pleasant effect.
Most distasteful.
But we will not be the first to speak.
Certainly not.
Mr. Worthing, there is something very particular I have to say to you, much depends on your reply.
Madeline, your common sense is invaluable. Mr. Moncrief, kindly answer me the following question. Why did you pretend to be my guardian's brother?
That I might have an opportunity of meeting you.
That certainly seems a satisfactory explanation, does it not?
Yes, my dear, if you can believe him.
I don't. That does not affect the wonderful beauty of his answer.
In matters of grave importance, style, not sincerity, is the vital thing. Mr. Worthing, what explanation can you offer to me for pretending to have a brother? Was it in order that you might have the opportunity of coming up to town to see me as often as possible?
Can you doubt it, Miss Fairfax?
I have the gravest doubts upon the subject. But I intend to cross that. This is not the moment for German skepticism. That doesn't seem to be quite satisfactory, especially Especially Mr. Worthing's. That seems to me to have the stamp of truth upon it.
I am more than satisfied with what Mr. Moncrief has said. His voice alone inspires one with absolute credulity. Yes. Oh!
No. True. I had forgotten. The principles at stake that one cannot surrender. I should tell them the task is not a pleasant one.
But could we not both speak at the same time?
Oh, an excellent idea. I nearly always speak at the same time as other people. Will you take the time for me?
Certainly. Your Christian names are still an insuperable barrier.
That is all.
Our Christian name?
Is that all?
But we're
We're
going
going to be christened this afternoon.
For my sake, you are prepared to do this horrible thing?
I am.
Please me, you are ready to face this fearful ordeal.
I am.
How absurd to talk of the equality of the sexes! Where questions of self-sacrifice are concerned, men are infinitely beyond us.
We are.
There are moments of physical courage in which we women know absolutely nothing of.
Darling.
Lady Bracknell, Reginald,
Good.
what is the meaning of this?
Merely that I am engaged to Mr. Worthing, Mamma.
Sit down, child. Sit down immediately. Hesitation of many kinds is a sign of mental decay young and physical weakness in old. Apprise, sir, of my daughter's sudden flight by her trusty maid whose confidence I purchased by means of small coin. I revived her pass by luggage train. Her unhappy father is, I'm glad to say, under the impression that she is attending a more than usually lengthy lecture from the University Extension Scheme on the influence of permanent income on thought. I do not propose to undeceive him. I have never undeceived him on any matter. I would consider it wrong. But of course you understand that all communication between yourself and my daughter must cease immediately from this moment. On this point, as indeed as I am on all points, I am firm.
I am engaged to be married to Gwendolen, Lady Bracknell.
You are nothing of the kind, sir. Now, as a matter of God, Algernon.
Yes, Aunt
May
Augusta.
I ask if this is the house that your invalid friend Mr. Bunbury resides?
Oh, no, Bunbury doesn't live here. Bunbury is somewhere else at present. In fact, Bunbury is dead.
Must have been extremely sudden.
Oh, I killed Bunbury this afternoon. I know Bunbury died this afternoon.
What did he die of?
Oh, Bunbury was quite exploded.
Was the victim of a revolutionary outrage? I was not aware that this Mr. Bunbury was involved in social legislation. If so, he was well punished for his morbidity.
Dear Aunt Augusta, what I mean is he was found out. The doctors found out that Bunbury could not live, that is what I mean, and so Bunbury died.
Very high confidence in the opinion of his physicians. I am glad, however, that he at last made up to his mind some definite course of action and acted under proper medical advice. Now, Mr. Bunbury, may I ask Mr. Worthing, who is this young person whose hand my nephew Algernon seems to be holding what seems to be a purely unnecessary manner?
That lady is Miss Cecily Cardew, my ward.
I'm engaged to be married to Cecily, Aunt Augusta.
I beg your pardon?
Oh, Mr. Moncrief and I are engaged to be married, Lady Bracknell.
I do not know if there's anything particularly exciting in the air in this particular part of Bedfordshire, but the number of engagements that go on seems to me considerably above the proper average which statistics have laid down for our guidance. Some preliminary inquiry on my part would not be out of place. Mr. Worthing, is Miss Cardew connected with any of the larger railway stations in London? I really desire information. Until yesterday, I had no idea there was any person or families whose origin was a terminus.
Miss Cardew is the granddaughter of the late Mr. Thomas Cardew of 149 Belgrave Square, SW, Grace Park, Dorking, Surrey, and the Sporran, Fifeshire, NB.
Three addresses always do inspire confidence, even in tradesmen. But what proof provide their authenticity?
I have carefully preserved the court guides of the period, Lady Bracknell. They are open to your inspection.
I've known strange errors in that publication.
Miss Cardew's family solicitors are Messrs. Markby, and Markby.
Markby and Markby, a firm of the highest position in their profession. Indeed, I'm told that one of the Mr. Markbys can occasionally be seen at dinner parties. So far, I'm satisfied.
How extremely kind of you, Lady Bracknell. I have also in my possession, you'll be pleased to hear, certificates of Miss Cardew's birth, baptism, whooping cough, registration, vaccination, confirmation, and the measles, both the German and the English variety.
Life crowded with instant, though perhaps a bit too exciting for a young girl. I am not myself myself in favour of premature experiences. Come now, Gwendolyn, we must be going. As a matter of form, Mr. Worthing, I might ask if Miss Cardew has any little fortune.
Oh, about £130,000 in the funds. Thank you, Lady Bracken, that is all. So pleased to have seen you.
A moment, Mr. Worthing. £130,000? And in the funds? Miss Cardew seems to me a most attractive young lady now that I look at her. A few girls of our age possess really solid qualities. Qualities that last and improve with time. We live, I regret to say, in an age of surfaces. Come over here, child. Your dress is sadly simple, and your hair looks almost as if nature might have left it. We can soon alter that. A thoroughly experienced French maid produces a really miraculous result in a very brief space of time. Indeed, I remember recommending her to one young lady Lansing, and for 3 months her husband didn't know her.
And after 6 months, nobody knew her.
Kindly, turn around, sweet child. No, the side view is what I want. Yes, there, as I expected, there are distinct social possibilities in your profile. The two weak points in our age are want a principle and want a profile. Chin slightly higher, dear. Style largely depends on the way the chin is worn. They're worn very high at present. Algernon.
Yes, Aunt Augusta.
There are distinct social possibilities in Miss Cardew's profile.
Cecily is the dearest, sweetest, prettiest girl in the whole world, and I don't give tuppence for social possibility.
Never speak disrespectfully of society, Algernon. Only people who can't get into it to do that. My dear, you know that my nephew has nothing but his debts to depend upon. But I'm not myself in favour of mercenary marriages. Indeed, when I married Lord Bracknell, I had no fortune of any kind, but never dreamed of allowing it to stand in my way. So I suppose I must give my consent.
Thank you, Aunt Augusta.
Cecily, you may kiss me.
Oh, thank you, Lady Bracknell.
You may also address me as Aunt Augusta in the future.
Thank you, Aunt Augusta.
The marriage, I think, had better take place quite soon.
Thank you,
Thank you,
Aunt
Aunt
Augusta.
Augusta.
To speak quite frankly, I'm not myself in favour of long engagements. They give each other the opportunity of finding out each other's character before marriage.
I beg your pardon for interrupting you, Lady Bracken, but this engagement is quite out of the question. I am Miss Cardew's guardian, and she cannot marry without my consent until she comes of age. That consent I absolutely decline to give.
What grounds, may I ask? Algernon is an extremely, I must even say, ostentatiously eligible young man. He has nothing, but looks everything. What more could you ask?
It pains me very much to have to speak the truth to you, Lady Bracknell, about your nephew. But the fact is, I do not approve at all of his moral character. I suspect him of being untruthful.
Untruthful? My nephew Algernon, impossible. He's an Oxonian.
I fear there can be no possible doubt about the matter. This afternoon, during my temporary absence to London on an important question of romance, he obtained admission to my house by the false pretense of being my brother. Under an assumed name, he drank, I've just been informed by my butler, an entire pint bottle of my Père Jouet Brew Catabaneuf, wine I was specially reserving for myself. Continuing his disgraceful deception, he succeeded in the course of the afternoon in alienating the affections of my only ward. He subsequently stayed to tea and devoured every single muffin. What makes his conduct all the more heartless is that he was perfectly well aware from the first that I have no brother, that I'd never had a brother, and that I don't intend to have a brother, not even of any kind. I distinctly told him so myself yesterday afternoon.
Yes, but after careful consideration, I've decided to overlook my nephew's conduct with you.
How very generous of you, Lady Bracknell. My own decision, however, is unalterable. I could decline to give my consent.
Come over here, child. How old are you?
Well, I'm really only 18, but I always admit to 20 when I go to evening parties.
You are quite right in making some alteration. Indeed, no woman should ever be quite accurate about her age. It looks so calculating. Let's look. But admitting to 20 at dinner parties. Well, it will not be long before you're of age and free from the restraints of tutelage. So I suppose your guardian's opinion is, after all, not of any importance.
I beg your pardon. Pray excuse me for interrupting you again, Lady Bracknell, but it is only fair to tell you that according to Miss Cardew's grandfather's will, she does not legally come of age until she is 35.
Oh, I see no grave objection to that. 35 is a very attractive age. London society is full of women of the highest position. I've admitted to 35 for years. Lady Tumbleton is an instance in point. which she's been 35 ever since she arrived at age 40, which was many years ago. I can't see why Cecily could not be even more attractive at the age you mentioned than she is now. There'd be an accumulation of property.
Algie, do you think you could wait for me till I was 35?
Of course I could, darling. You know I could.
Yes, I felt it instinctively. But I couldn't wait all that time. I hate waiting even 5 minutes for anybody. It always makes me rather cross. I'm not punctual myself, I know, but I do admire punctuality in others. And waiting, even to be married, is quite out of the question.
What is to be done then, Cecily?
I don't know,
Mr. Worthing, as Miss Cardew states, she cannot possibly wait until she is 35, a remark which seems to me to show a somewhat impatient nature. I beg you to reconsider your decision.
But, my dear Lady Bracknell, the matter is entirely in your own hands. The moment you consent to my marriage with Gwendolen, I will most gladly allow an alliance to be formed between your nephew and my ward.
But of course you know what you propose is out of the question.
Then I'm afraid a passionate celibacy is all that any of us have to look forward to.
Destiny, I propose for Gwendolen. Algernon can choose for himself. Come, Gwendolen, we missed 5, if not 6 trains. To miss any more might expose us to comment on the platform.
Everything is quite ready for the christenings.
The christening, sir, is that not somewhat premature? At their age, the idea is both grotesque and irreligious. Algernon, I forbid you to be baptized. Lord Bracknell will be highly displeased if you learn this was the way you wasted your time and money.
Am I to understand that there are to be no christenings at all this afternoon?
I don't think, as things are now, it would be much practical use to either of us, Dr. Chasuble.
Grieves to me very much to hear such statements from you, Mr. Worthing. They savor of the heretical views of the Anabaptists, views that I've refuted in 4 of my unpublished sermons. However, as your present state seems to be one peculiarly secular, I will turn to the church at once. Indeed, I have just been informed by the pew opener that for the last hour and a half, Miss Prism has been waiting for me in the vestry.
Prism? Did I hear you mention a Miss Prism?
Yes, Lady Bracknell, I'm on my way to join her now.
Pray allow me to detain you for a moment, but is this Miss Prism a female of repellent nature, remotely connected with education?
She is the most cultivated of ladies and the picture of respectability.
It is obviously the same person. May I ask what position she holds in your household?
I'm a celibate, madam.
Miss Prism, Lady Bracknell, has been for the last 3 years Miss Cardew's esteemed governess and valued companion.
Yes, despite what I hear of her, I must see her at once. Let her be sent for.
She approaches, she is 9.
I was told that you expected me in the vestry, dear Ken, and I've been waiting for you there for the past hour and 45 minutes.
Where is that baby? 28 years ago, Prism, you left Lord Bracknell's house, number 104 Upper Grosvenor Square, in charge of a perambulator that contained a baby of male sex. You never returned. A few weeks later, after thorough investigation through the Metropolitan Police, the perambulator was discovered in a remote location in Bayswater. It contained the manuscript of a 3-volume novel of more than revolting sentimentality, but no baby. Where is that baby, Prism? Where is that baby?
Lady Bracknell, I admit with shame that I do not know. I only wish I did. The plain facts of the case are these. On the morning of the day that you mention, a day that will be forever branded on my memory, I prepared as usual to take the baby out in its perambulator. I had also with me a somewhat old but capacious handbag in which I had intended to place the work of fiction, the manuscript of it, in it. But I found that in a moment of mental abstraction, that I had left the manuscript in the bassinet and placed the baby in the handbag.
But where did you deposit the handbag?
Do not ask me, Mr. Worthing.
Miss Prism, this is a matter of no small importance to me. I insist on knowing where you deposited the handbag that contained that infant.
I left it in the cloakroom of one of the larger railway stations in London.
What railway station?
Victoria, the Brighton line.
I must return to my room for a moment. Gwendolen, wait for me here.
If you want not too long, I will wait for you all my life.
What do you think this means, Lady Bracknell?
I dare not even say, Dr. Chasuble, but in families of the highest position, strange not occur, they are hardly considered a thing.
Uncle Jack seems strangely agitated.
The suspense is terrible. I hope it will last.
Miss Prism, is this the handbag? Examine it carefully before you speak. The happiness of more than one life depends on your answer.
It appears to be mine. Yes, yes! Here is the injury it received through the upsetting of a Gower Street omnibus in younger and
Happier days.
Here is the stain on the lining caused by the explosion of a temperance beverage, an incident that happened at Leamington, and here, on the lock on my initials, I had forgotten that in an extravagant mood I had placed them there. The bag is undoubtedly mine. I am delighted to have it so unexpectedly restored to me. It has been a great inconvenience being without it all these years.
More is restored to you than this handbag. I was the baby you placed in it.
You?
Yes. Mother! Unmarried? I do not deny this is a serious blow. But who can cast a stone against one who has suffered? Cannot repentance wipe out an act of folly? Why should there be one law for men and another for women? I forgive you!
Mr. Worthing, there is some error. There is the lady who can tell you who you really are.
Lady Bracknell, I don't mean to seem inquisitive, but would you kindly inform me who I am?
Wait, the information I have may not altogether please you. You are the son of my poor sister, Mrs. Moncrief, and consequently Algernon's elder brother.
His elder brother? Then I have a brother after all! I knew I had a brother! I knew it! I knew it! I always said I had a brother! How could you have a doubt I had a brother? Dr. Johnson! My unfortunate brother! My unfortunate brother! You young scoundrel around you! You've never treated me like a brother in all your life. You've got to behave to me like more like a brother.
Well, not today, old boy, I admit it, but I did my best though in practice.
My own! But what is your Christian name now that you have become someone else?
Right. I'd quite forgotten that point. Your decision on the subject of my name is irrevocable, I suppose.
I never change except in my affections.
Then the question better be settled at once. Aunt Augusta, a moment. At the time when Miss Prism left me in the handbag, had I been christened already?
Every luxury that money could buy, including christening, had been doted upon you by your fond and doting parents.
Then I was christened. That is settled. What was my Christian name?
Well, being the eldest son, you were naturally christened after your father.
Yes, but what was my father's Christian name?
I cannot at the present recall what the general's Christian name was. He was an eccentric, but only in the later years. And that was due to the Indian climate and indigestion and marriage and things of that sort.
Can't you recollect what our father's Christian name was?
We were hardly on speaking terms, my dear fellow. He died before I was a year old.
His name would appear on the army list of the period, I suppose, Aunt Augusta.
The general was a man of peace, except in his domestic life. But I have no doubt his name would in any military directory.
The army lists of the last 40 years are here. These delightful records should have been my constant study. Generals. Malum, Maxwell, Maxley, ghastly names they have. Moncrief, Lieutenant 1840. Captain, Lieutenant Colonel, Colonel, General 1869. Christian names? Earnest. I always told you, Madeline. My name was Earnest, didn't I? Well, it naturally is Earnest. I mean, it always has been Earnest.
It's not all that the general was called Ernest, and no reason to dislike him that name.
Oh, my own Ernest!
Gwendolyn, it's a very terrible thing for a man to find out suddenly that all his life he's been telling the truth.
That you are sure to change.
Frederick at last!
Cecily at last.
Gwendolyn, at last!
You seem to be displaying signs of triviality.
On the contrary, Aunt Augusta, I've now realized for the first time in my life the vital importance of being earnest.